Hey there, welcome to the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program, episode 31, being recorded today on Friday, September 22nd, 2023. Is it autumn yet? Today we are talking about our business plan, our business model. How does our organization actually function? So our business model is very simple. We're not a for-profit company. So that's the gist. We'll go from there. My name is Dan Hugo. I'm the managing director of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, recently officially renamed here in the state of Nevada. Some procrastination and hassle with silver flume. If you know what that is, you know our pain. But anyway, at the end of the day, it was not, the task was not difficult. It was the process that was no fun. Getting straight answers is always tricky here in Nevada. So our guest that we will have for our next episode, I think, we were supposed to do this today, but we'll do that next week. That will be, it will actually go nicely with this. It kind of dovetails off of it. So our business model, I get asked this all the time. What's your tech stack? Do you need talent? Do you want me to get you a bunch of Java developers or things like this? It's funny to me. I'm laughing because there's a presumption that innovation equals software development, and that software development equals opportunity to place potential employees or talent. There's and of course that's why the question: what's your tech stack? What are you using to build your products? And the look on the faces when I tell people we don't have one. What? How does that work? Well, we're not a software company. We're not shipping product. In fact, our focus is not software, which also throws people. How do you innovate without software? And certainly software is adjacent to a lot of things now. If you are opening a coffee shop or starting a food truck or building an art studio or anything, there's going to be some sort of social media. There's going to be some sort of a bookkeeping, some sort of scheduling. There are tools that are typically software. There's even hardware tools. There's computer technology. There's all manner of things. But there's more to life than sitting in front of a laptop and coding all day. Trust me. You'll figure it out if you think that's what it is. So Innovate for Vegas is not in fact, that's why we changed our name from Code for Vegas, because we were so often asked, if I'm not a coder, am I welcome? Is this for me? So our name changes. It kind of fits into this. So we are not a tech company. We're not a software company. We are a nonprofit public charity. And we hope that people that participate will understand that, and that people that support or at least observe will as well. Our purpose, because it's written down, it's official. Our purpose when we filed our nonprofit paperwork and the thing we pursue is to enable and encourage ideation, innovation, and implementation to make our communities better. It's that simple. None of those things are software specifically, although software is not everything. It is a part of the whole, but it is not the whole, right? So not everything has to be computers or tech or coding, but they figure into things. Part of the challenge is to attract people who are not coders, who will understand the fact that being a creative, so to speak, being a linguist, being able to translate language, being able to test things, being able to talk to people, being able to figure out what it is in our communities that could be made better. And maybe being made better means better documentation, better illustrations, maybe understanding that not everyone speaks English and Spanish. I just saw the other day, Nevada, the most popular third language in Nevada is Tagalog. I would not have guessed that, but good to know. And then there are, 40 million tourists come here. Not everyone speaks any of those three languages. So being aware of people in communities and how to engage with them, guess what? Those are job skills. And that's our dirty little secret, is we're actually trying to build up our innovation culture by enabling development of job skills for participants. So you learn how to work with people and learn how to work on projects and collaborate and specify things and fix them when they're broken and pivot when they aren't done quite to the needs of the people using them, and so on and so on. So we're not a software company, although software is a component of what we are looking to accomplish. As well, we are everything we do is released under an open source license, whether it's a Creative Commons or GPL, similar. Right now, our default license is GPL v3, in case you're curious. The idea being people who volunteer their time, I would like them to know that their volunteer efforts will not be deployed in a commercial project without their participation. So the GPL v3 approach says, you volunteered your time, we're releasing your effort, your work, your creative work for people to use, but you'll get credit and it won't find its way into a commercial project where someone else benefits from your time. I've seen that happen with a certain national organization that rhymes with Board Force from America. So I would like, people to understand that their contributions are valued and they will not be taken. Yes, they're published under open source licenses, so people can use them, but full attribution, and ideally no one is profiting off of your work without you being involved in some way. So part of the other part of the challenge, if you will, is that we are civic volunteer powered. Everyone associated with Innovate for Vegas Foundation is a volunteer. I am not an employer. I do not get paid. I do not get compensated, other than the solemn pride that must be mine watching all of this unfurl. So we are volunteers that are trying to enable all this. The enabling and encouraging part, also free. So when people volunteer their time, they must understand that others are volunteering their time, that everyone is volunteering time. And so part of what we are attempting to establish is the notion that when you work with people, you collaborate on a project with them. You should respect their time. They should respect your time. You should value the contributions. You should take the participation seriously. These are job skills, right? You should not be the member of the team that everybody says, oh, big surprise, they didn't show up, they didn't finish, they didn't do what they said, they didn't finish the task, and so we're all delayed, that kind of thing. So that's part of the take home. So our civic volunteering, if you're, my favorite example is I use it frequently. If you're a volunteer firefighter, you got to show up for the fire. If you volunteered for the sake of volunteering and then you don't go do the thing, to finish the example, I always say that, hey, there's got to be a person here to pass the bucket in the brigade. And I use that word on purpose. If you're not there, the brigade doesn't work. And so the whole thing breaks down. Yeah, that's true. And so part of our challenge with civic volunteers is for them to understand the notion that volunteering is actually important. Now, I always say I don't want people to work for free, but I do want to work with people or collaborate with people who are willing to work for free. They're willing to volunteer their time. And ideally, our projects, when we deploy them, and deploying sounds like software, but it could be anything. Software, as it turns out, has a high return, a high perceived value, so a high return on investment, because the investment is minimal, right? You can build software and duplicate it, deploy it far and wide for far less than it would take to reproduce a hardware thing, or to cook food, or to prepare drinks, or to ship things, or most aspects of software are very economical to scale, certainly in the range that we're talking about here. So it will sound like I'm leaning heavily towards software, and the fact that I've been a software architect and engineer for 30 plus years now, about 30, it will color my commentary. However, anyone who's working on anything here, when we expose our communities, members of our communities, to the work, the creative effort and work that is part of what we're trying to accomplish, then they will realize the value of local innovation by local innovators. I say that a lot too. People who can address issues, solve problems, elevate communities, tackle the gaps, right? Close them, make them smaller at least, because they live, work, or otherwise interact with people around them or in communities around them. So the value hopefully comes from within. So civic volunteering is a lot of what you derive if you are a civic volunteer is personal satisfaction, completing projects with some sort of benefit for others that they then express to you. Gratitude, financial, tip jar style, or maybe you get hired. Maybe that's one of our goals, which I will get to in a moment. So the individual benefit of being a civic volunteer could be financial reward of some sort. Certainly job skill development. Like I said, and this is true certainly of the junior, I would say junior developers, but I mean junior people in general, people that are recently out of high school, recently took additional, maybe vocational or other training programs, boot camps. Maybe you just learned how to cook. Maybe you just learned how to do some graphic illustration. Maybe you are learning a second language or a third. The possibilities are endless. Maybe you'd like to learn about project management. Maybe you'd like to understand how any development process works, operations, right? How do we turn an idea into a thing that we will ship to the world, whether it's software or hardware or food or drink or anything. So there's a lot of opportunity on a volunteer basis to improve communities. And of course, part of our business model is that everyone who does that gets full credit, attribution, name mentioned. And ideally, one of the outcomes possible is being hired. Add some projects to your portfolio or your curriculum vitae. Somebody will ideally find a creative work, a component of a project or anything we're working on. And we'll say, who did this? And of course, here are the list of contributors, and here's who did what. And, can I hire the team? Can I hire that person? Can I hire those people? Ideally, that will begin to happen. Anyone who hangs out in the greater Vegas area knows that connecting skilled individuals with people looking for them can be tricky. As I mentioned earlier, did I mention this? Occasionally somebody would say, hey, I can get you some Java developers to work on this project. And I would say, well, I'm not recruiting Java developers. It's people who want to work on these projects. So sometimes recruiters their motivation is different than you as maybe you're a Java developer, but maybe you are not a Java developer, but you'd be interested in working on a project. So that recruiter mindset doesn't fill a need that we have. It fills a need that the recruiter has to place his Java or her Java developers in a role. And of course, when I explain that it's a volunteer role, they kind of backpedal a little bit, and then they say, well, maybe they could do this and be introduced, or it's okay, yeah, sure. That never comes to fruition, by the way. None of that ever happens. So the value proposition is, I would venture to guess, completely incompatible with the recruiter mindset, which is why we also don't recruit people. We don't proactively, hit the college or high school circuit and try to convince people. It's hard to convince people to volunteer their time. The return is not immediately obvious, and that's always going to be a challenge. That's not just a challenge in the greater Vegas area, although it is certainly a challenge in the greater Vegas area. So one of the things that I think I proposed this about a year ago, probably summer, October, September, somewhere in there, 2022, is the Labs program. If anyone who's used Google Gmail might recall that they launched it as a beta product forever. I think I got a beta account in 2001, summer 2001, I think. I still have that account, of course. Why not? So the notion of, hey, try out our beta stuff is not new at all. So one of the goals of our labs would be to enable projects that are new, still works in progress, or possibly, version 1, if you will, to be deployed. And I'm still sounding like a software engineer, but to be exposed to the world so that people can try them. Maybe they're not finished products, if you will, or maybe the art, it's taste the cookie dough before the cookies are done cooking, right? So ideally, we'll have people that try things, and then if they appreciate the work of our organization, or the efforts and creative works of the individual contributors. They can do the typical term is a value for value support model. They may do a Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency payment to individuals, perhaps. That would be a low transaction cost, so possibility. I'm not a huge fan of crypto, but as a transaction medium, that's fine. Maybe a production or pre-production release has a team of contributors who have a Patreon or have a buy me a coffee page, or maybe they have maybe they've formed a little, maybe they actually formed an LLC. Maybe they have a Stripe account or similar, right? So the interaction can be what our contributors make of it. As a volunteer, you're volunteering your time for open source product development. And by the way, if you are a Linux user, which means anyone on the planet at this point, if you've ever used any open source software, you are taking advantage of the time and thought and effort contributed by untold thousands, tens of thousands. Because remember, the project that you're working on, if it's open source, almost certainly makes use of other open source software projects, components. There's even open source hardware. There are open source efforts that will sometimes be labeled as community commons. So you can reuse written works, graphics, images. We make use of Creative Commons iconography in some of our stuff, our logo and so on. So the value for value model is not new, nor is the notion of working on open source software and then benefiting later as a consultant or as a getting hired. The nature of open source software means that people understand to some degree that what they can see in these projects is examples of work people do. You want to know what their skills are. You want to know how they function. Here's the team of people they worked with. Here's what they developed, and here's how it works. And go ahead and try it. Look at the sources. Read through the documents. Look at the image. All that. So the value for value model could be cash money. Could be some sort of cryptocurrency, which I guess is also money eventually. And sorry, my little commentary. And then, but it could also be, well, obviously a growing portfolio of work that's visible for people to see, examples of your efforts and your talents as they grow, examples of how you work with others, and then ultimately potential, jobs, or maybe you're going to co-found a company with the people you worked with, or people from another project entirely who, they come across your work during Hacktoberfest or something, and hey, I'd like to work with you. So, by the way, my allergies are in full overdrive, so I'm editing out a couple of sections, brief moments of throat clarity, if you will. So my apologies for that. So the value for value model is something I've been pitching, and it's a thing we are pursuing, except that we don't really have many volunteers at this time. So that is a challenge that this is a challenge we'll talk about more in another episode or 2 or 10, but I'll touch on it here. Reaching beyond Nevada. So Innovate for Vegas sounds like, well, certainly Code for Vegas sounds like we're coding for Vegas, or we are innovating for Vegas now. Well, what else is there? Certainly Vegas is the world, right? And so the notion that we are inviting others to participate in our project sounds like why would I want to innovate for Vegas? I'm in, somewhere else. I'm in Reno. I'm in Tonopah, whatever, right? I'm not in Vegas. So why would I be interested in this? Well, a couple of reasons. There are multiple former brigades that are about to be former brigades as part of Code for America. There's the notion of civic hacking, civic volunteerism in general, democracy labs. There's a couple more that I'm totally spacing on right now, but so there are groups of people far and wide who participate in projects, whether it's formally as former, or I'll say former brigades. They're not, the sunset is on the horizon, but some brigades are still transitioning, you could say. But maybe they're not in a Code for America brigade. Maybe they're in their own little organization. I say little, not to diminish, but maybe it is a small, 10 people, 5 people, 2 people. Maybe it's 100 people. Maybe it's 1,000 people. Maybe it's spread across states and countries. Maybe it's a couple of people that meet in a coffee shop. Who knows? All of those are valid. They're all people willing to contribute their time to address problems. Maybe our purpose statement would resonate with them. Maybe their purpose statement would resonate with us. One of the things that Mary Norris, who recently joined our board, she's quite familiar with the brigade system and various people in brigades in various states of transition during the sunset process here in 2023. One of the reasons she joined was that we want to sort of create a flat collaboration environment rather than a hierarchy with central planning and enable discovery of projects. So if you imagine Hacktoberfest, which is coming up fast, I have some work to do because we aim to participate in this. If you imagine Hacktoberfest as the start of engagement with people who may not know about your projects, your organization, the goals, the purpose statement, but they are interested in contributing to open source projects. They're interested in getting involved. They're new, or maybe their projects are done and they're looking for something else to do. Maybe they sort of the hackathon mentality. Maybe they take a weekend now and then and just see what other people are working on to keep their skills sharp. There's very little, if you are of the mindset to learn something new, take on a challenge. It doesn't have to be jumping out of an airplane and trying to learn how parachutes work, but it could be, hey, I'm not familiar with this programming language. I'd like to see how this project is assembled and how it works. I'm not familiar with how Figma works, but I want to see how user interface design works. Not familiar with the language translation, but I'd love to see how the, they call it I-18N, internationalization, and L10N, localization. Love to see how that process works, how you construct the translation files, and how you account for left to right, right to left languages, or so on and so on. So language translation, graphic arts. Maybe you're a Photoshop person. Maybe you work in SVG, which I like. So if you like taking on new projects, you can see what other people are working on and kind of look over their shoulder, or even say, hey, can I offer a suggestion? And in the GitHub parlance, it's a pull request. Pull requests are not ideal. They kind of work. So take it or leave it. But as an entryway, or as a sort of a standard interface, it's something that most people in the software world know how to use. It's new to people who are completely divorced from software world. So that part makes it tricky. If you are, I use the chef and food examples often because this is where normal people encounter this all the time. Whether you think about it or not, you are always encountering someone who is cooking something new or trying out a new idea, or whether it's a recipe from a cookbook or they're just experimenting. You're able to encounter creativity in this form, and unless you're talking to a professional, somebody working for a restaurant. So if it's just your friend or a colleague or a random person, and you say, hey, what's that spice in here? What's that anise flavor? Or what's the umami flavor? That you can ask questions and you get answers, right? So the notion that there's open source food preparation is not completely new. Do chefs or cooks or people who are creating interesting victuals, do they check their recipes into GitHub? No. Maybe they should. So you can't really do a pull request on a recipe yet. Maybe that's a startup idea right there. Huh. So it's not perfect. It's not a perfect model, but the notion that people would like to collaborate across locality boundaries. So you can certainly innovate for Vegas if you're not in Vegas. You don't need to innovate in Vegas. And one of the things we are talking about with other people, is the fact that we, not the city of Las Vegas, but certainly the Strip, if you're familiar with Vegas, that's not actually in Las Vegas. Did you know that? The Strip is in unincorporated Clark County. Las Vegas administrative boundaries end at Sahara, around that part of town. So if you are on the Strip and you are south of Sahara, the street, you are not in the city of Las Vegas. even though the welcome to fabulous Las Vegas sign is not in Las Vegas, the one that you might encounter if you're driving from California, it is it in Enterprise? It's not in the city of Las Vegas. It's at the south end of the strip. It is very near the airport, not in the city of Las Vegas. So who knew? So we can engage with people anywhere, but we do have 40 million visitors approximately visiting the greater Vegas area, the strip, most likely, convention centers and so on, and maybe the city of Las Vegas, downtown Las Vegas, etc. So some people visit the city, some people just visit the greater Vegas area, Southern Nevada. Either way, 40 million people that come here. We would love it if some of our solutions to things, some of the gaps we close with making our communities better, some of the open source creative works can be tested out, exposed to people. In these COVID times, exposing people to things is not a great way to phrase it, perhaps, but if people can find a better way to get around on our public transit system, which could be anything, if we create stone tablets with bus information on them, that would work better than what we have now. So if people visiting here find that, hey, the strip is actually pretty useful with this app on my phone, or and again, not everything is an app, but for example, I was able to get around. I don't speak English. I'm obviously translating for you right now. So I didn't have to ask other people and have them speak very slowly and loudly to me and pointing at things. I was able to use my phone. I could get on a bus. I didn't have to ask how to pay the fare, how to pay for the pass. Everything was clear. I knew where I was going. Now, anyone who's used the internet in the last 30 years knows that the ability to consume content, use tools on the internet when you do not speak the native language of the tool itself. For example, a website that's authored in German, if they have not performed the translations to English or to any other language, you can get some translation done. Google, Amazon, others. I think the Chrome browser, even on your mobile device, and Firefox now, they do translation of web page content. So you can localize if a page has been properly constructed, as in they've taken into account that it may not be displayed in the original authored language, not difficult to do, then I can consume bus information, for example, public transit info, schedules, and so on, in my language, not ask the driver, and the driver often does not speak your language either. I've seen this countless times. So if we can start to develop solutions that take advantage of modern technologies like language translation, if we have people who are interested in that and can actually make sure that automated translation works and that the end results are usable, if we can account for accessibility, I know of multiple people that live here in the greater Vegas area who ride public transit buses, yet they cannot use the transit app, which is horrible, because it is not visible to them. It is not built to be accessible for people with vision impairments such that it can be used. And ideally, that person who I have spoken to myself, for example, the one I'm picturing rides the same bus as I do, who's he going to tell? People at the transit app company in Montreal, Canada are not responsive. I've tried. But I have talked to him. If I'm working on that software, I can talk to him directly. I will care what he has to say. So part of what we're trying to accomplish is that direct engagement with members of our communities, and people in other places can interact with members of their communities. And if we can collaborate across geographical, I'm not going to say boundaries, but borders. Borders are lines on a map. They're not walls between people. So if we can actually collaborate, not everything that we are working on, in fact, most of the things we're working on are not Vegas-centric. Trying to make our smart city smarter, it could be applied to anywhere, right? So you could live anywhere on the planet and be wondering about how to make it easier to get around with public transit or how to find information. Maybe your locality has an open data set. Maybe they have a group of people maintaining them, but then nobody knows about them. And you can check back in our episode with Anthony and Nicole from City of Las Vegas. The group of people maintaining our open data sets has been shrinking. So ideally, we'll have people on the ground volunteering their time understanding the value of that and maybe filling in some gaps. We certainly have our open data capture platform project, which would be designed to enable more data to come in and be inserted into open data. Open data versus public data, there are subtle differences, but making more data available for people to use and to build, not only build apps with, but also to just take advantage of so they understand their communities better. That's another topic for another day to focus on. Anyway, so our business model is fairly simple, even though I've gone on at length. We want to make our communities better. We want the people that live here to be a part of that directly. And if we don't find people here who want to be a part of that directly, which has been the case, unfortunately, then we reach beyond Nevada to find other people who are doing similar things in their communities, and we work together, and we bring to the table the fact that we have so many visitors coming here and that we can have 40 million plus or minus, obviously not 100% adoption, but we have the opportunity to present various open source projects. And so Mary, when Mary Norris has some time to join, we'll talk about the Trash AI project that Code for Sacramento, of which Mary is also a part, has deployed. And when we talk about that, we'll talk about how they built it and all that. And eventually we'll have the team that built it on there in keeping with what I've described previously. So we want everybody who's worked on it to chime in. But essentially, how do you get people to work on these projects? And then who is using Trash AI? Could we deploy that in Vegas as part of it's basically identifying refuse. You could, recycling things, which items are recyclable, which are not. So yeah, how can we take projects that people are working on where they are and expose more people to them and collaborate across geographical borders, administrative boundaries? Because at the end of the day, innovating for Vegas or where you are doesn't mean I have to be there. It does mean that we can all benefit from collaboration, which is a job skill, which we hope more people will learn. The circle completes. So I'll leave it there today. That's a quick rundown. Like I said, people ask frequently. We're not looking for talent. We're looking for people who want to work on these projects. So our compensation package is fairly horrible unless you value the future. Karma points, we got plenty. Take all you want. But we're not looking to recruit people. We're not trying to convince people. We're trying to offer these opportunities, and some people will grok the possibilities. They will see opportunity in chaos. They will see the potential for how their own skills can improve, how they can raise the tide, and we'll go from there. And no, we're not going to use WordPress. Just do it on WordPress. The journey is part of the gift, as the saying goes. People learning how to do things and building things that are purpose-built, not making it work, not shoehorning WordPress plugins together to build a thing. Just, hey, we can actually build it. That's why I went to the coding bootcamp, or that's why another food example. Hey, chef, here's a boxed cake mix, or here's a TV dinner. Here's some frozen ribs. The list goes on. Are you kidding? I learned how to do this so that I could do it, not open a can and defrost it. Come on, we're here to build things, whether it's creative work, art, translations, etc., or writing code, or eventually building hardware and so on. So that's it. That's where I will leave it. Please tell your friends. As always, like and subscribe. Yes, we should be self-hosting. Why are we not? Because swamped am I. Ideally, our MyMuni platform, actually the Smart Social component, will include podcast and content, the new coolness. We should all know who in our locality is creating content, like audio podcasts, like video blogs, or shows. There's a great YouTuber here in Greater Vegas, Norma Helly. She answers to both. I like Norma's content. She seems like a real person, and she does fun content, and I'm sure most people know about her, but and this is not a plug, it's just a good example. More people should know about, there's Ruby. There are various people Jacob. I'm not a big fan of Jacob. There are plenty of people, though, that create interesting content on different topics. They tend to be more tourist focused, so people visiting Vegas. Other people might be building their brand. They may be working on really useful content. Jason LeDuc, for example, has a podcast about leadership and building companies and how to execute on these ideas. Do tourists watch these things? Probably not. Are they going to find Jason's content? Probably not. More focused on companies here. However, there are, Mobile World Congress, NAB, KBIS, CES. There are people that visit Las Vegas from far and wide. They usually have no idea about the talent and potential here in Vegas. You're not visiting Disneyland and looking at people walking around in character suits. There are actual businesses here. There are actual entrepreneurs, whether it's a coffee shop or the next unicorn facing exit with massive financial gains for its investors, which is what everybody thinks about. But we are right there in the middle, trying to enable people to develop their skills and build value for value, making our communities better. I just strung together a whole bunch of different phrase fragments from what I've been talking about, but there it is. Okay, then. I will leave it here.